Have you ever heard of Filmstro? Well, you're gonna. Welcome to SUCFS. I am your host, Mike Crockett, and we're here today to talk about Filmstro. Now, if you haven't heard about Filmstro, Filmstro is a piece of software that will allow you to create music. Not just pick music from a list of songs, but you can actually, well, okay, so you're picking from a list of songs, but you have the ability with Filmstro to customize the tracks to fit your film or your video, whatever you're making. So let's jump right in and take a look. So this is the basic interface of Filmstro. So you start out with, you can watch a tutorial, you can open a demo session where they actually have like a little segment of a short film that they let you play with. But I actually have created a video that we can use to just show how Filmstro works. So we're going to import that video. Now, if you guys have been watching my channel, a while back we did a video testing the Ronin M, the DJI Ronin M. And so I have removed the music from that, and we're going to use that to play with Filmstro. So one of the things you'll notice here, so we have our screen where we can preview what we're doing. So here's the video, no music, in fact no sound whatsoever. So let's go back to the beginning. Here on the left side you have a list of different types of themes you can choose from. Now it says free themes here at the top. There is a free version of Filmstro, but it only gives you 5 themes. So I pay $10 a month to Filmstro, and I get this long list of different types of themes, and then I can go in here and choose from a list of songs under each type of theme, so, or under each type of genre. So we have different genre lists here. Let's choose something in the fairy tale list here. So here you can preview the songs that you want to use. And down here you can control 3 different aspects of your track. You can control the momentum, and now while momentum doesn't actually control the speed of your track, it's still going to be 110 beats per minute for this particular track. It controls kind of the feel, the energy of what you already have. Now you can also control the depth. And what this typically controls is the bass of your track. And the higher, you notice the higher you push that up, the more the high tones kind of go away. So let's bring these both down to about the middle. And let's look at the power. So if you slide up the power, so that brings out some of the other tones, some of the other instruments. So let's pause that. Let's just look at another one, just for gits and shiggles here. Let's look at Centaur. So if we increase the momentum, you'll notice once again we're not actually increasing the tempo. We're just adding more energy to the tempo that's already there. If we add some depth, if we add some power, so if you look over here, you can also see these different controls, and you have what you would normally call in your NLE a timeline. And apart from your momentum, depth, and power controls, you can also control the volume of your video that's playing up here and the volume of your soundtrack. And so let's pick a song here. What the heck? Let's use Centaur. So if we go down here, we're starting everything out at the bottom, other than our video volume, which actually doesn't have any sound, and our soundtrack volume, which is going to be started out at the top. And you have these little dots here on your timeline, and in some NLEs you'd call those, I guess, nodes. In most NLEs you would call them your keyframes. And those pretty much work how they would in your normal NLE. So let's just start playing here. Kind of increase the momentum a little bit. So that's the gist of how it works. Now, you have other options here that don't really seem to be real obvious, but you can actually drag the edges, the start and stop points of your track, so that you can actually add more than one track to a timeline. Now, that wasn't initially obvious to me when I first started using Filmstro, but it is kind of cool that you can add more than one track to your timeline. I'm going to just drag this back out here because I kind of like the way this turned out. So now what we would do is well, you can also save your work. So I'm actually going to save this. Let's go to where I put all my video files. And we're going to go to the SUCFS folder. We're talking about Filmstro, and this isn't the normal folder structure that I usually use, but we're just kind of doing this to show you how it works. So I'm just going to save that as music. Now I'm going to drag this into view. here's something that you get from Filmstro. Filmstro gives you license to use this music that you create. So you actually get a music cue sheet that acts as and represents the official unique ID and license for this track. Now I'm not a lawyer, and I really don't know everything about how copyright works, but this gives you proof of the track that you created, and Filmstro will allow you to use this in pretty much any of your creative projects, as long as you're paying for the software, which again is only $10 a month. So, I'm going to drag that out of the screen here, and let's go ahead and export this music, and we'll just call it music. And you pretty much only have the option to export it as a WAV file, which that's okay. You can import that WAV file into your NLE. So I'm going to click export. Filmstro is going to do its little wiki voodoo magic, and in a few seconds you get this pop-up that says your file has been saved and is in the following location, the location that we saved it to. So now, if we come back into our NLE, where we had previously exported the video without any music, we can import that music track and lay it down on our timeline. And so now, of course, if we play our timeline, you have your music. And then you can export your video again with the music intact. So it's a pretty simple and easy to understand workflow here for creating music with Filmstro. So there you have it. There's Filmstro. Now, Filmstro has been out for a little while. It's actually been out since last year, but only for Mac users. And it hasn't been available for Windows users until a couple months ago. Now, Filmstro, they used to have on their website, all over the website, that now everybody is a composer, and that's absolutely not true. Filmstro does not replace having a composer work on your film's music track. If you've been watching our channel, you'll remember last year we released a short film called Monochrome, and that music was actually written by Trevor Gorton. Filmstro cannot replace Trevor Gorton, and we're working on Time Cave, as you know if you've been watching our channel, and Trevor is actually planning on writing the music score for Time Cave. I will not be using Filmstro to do that. Also, we're going to be working on another short film later on this year, and again, I'm going to have a composer writing the score for that. I will not be using Filmstro. Filmstro should only be used if you do not have access to a composer. But that being said, if you don't have access to a composer, Filmstro is a really good solution. Again, it's $10 a month and you have access to all these tracks. And they're adding new tracks every week, at least they are for Mac users. So there are a few things that I don't like about Filmstro. Being a Windows user myself, the software for Windows is just infested with bugs. It has been since they released it a couple of months ago, and they continue to make improvements to it, but the fact remains that it is still riddled with bugs. Now, at this point in the game, the bugs that are still left over are few and far between. But where Windows is an operating system that can be used on a wide range of different types of computers with different types of hardware, there is the off chance that you will still run across some of these bugs. I really blame this on their development.
practices, because you may know that I have a background in information technology, and I've worked with developers. Had they started out working with a good development platform, they could have, if they wanted to start with the Mac version, fine, they could have started with the Mac version, and then with a few clicks of a mouse, they could have ported that code over to be used in Windows. That simple. But, I say that, but at the same time, I really don't know what development platform they were using. There are also some things that I would like to see integrated into Filmstro, like the ability to break out separate instruments. There are some tracks that have some vocals that I just don't like, and I'd love to break those out and dispose of them. And the ability to start and stop a track, or stop and start a track in the middle of the track, with the ability to restart it where it left off. And then the ability to add swells and stings to your to your music track would be nice. Now, I've been in direct contact with one of the developers of Filmstro early on in the Windows release, and I told him of these things I'd like to see, and he assured me that these things are coming to Filmstro. So if by the time you get Filmstro you don't have these features that I've talked about, or maybe some features that you would like to see added, chances are they're coming. And Filmstro does have a really good support community. In fact, there's a Facebook group dedicated to just the support of Filmstro, where you can communicate with the developers of Filmstro, and they're really good about taking your feedback and implementing what you would like to see into their software. So that's it for this episode on Filmstro. A couple other things that I'd like to talk about. As I've mentioned before, we are still working on Time Cave. We're currently in the process of doing all the visual effects. After that will come color grading and, of course, the music track. Once again, Trevor Gorton is planning on doing the music track for Time Cave. So be sure and subscribe so that you know right when Time Cave is released. And I also wanted to talk about Patreon. Now, we just recently got our first patron on Patreon. Thank you, Amethyst Priest, for being our first patron. If you don't know what Patreon is, think of it as kind of a Kickstarter, but for creatives. Creatives like Southern Utah Community Film Studio, where you can contribute to the funds that are needed for that creator to continue to create. There are different tiers of amounts that you can pledge, and the rewards for those tiers are different. So become a patron of SUCFS and help us to continue to create good content and better content for you to view. And with that, thank you for joining us here on SUCFS, and we'll see you next time.